What are some of the liability considerations an inspector may face? For example, you conduct an inspection and you don't find a violation. Later on that day, a fire breaks out and it's caused by something you might have missed in that inspection. You need to understand the limitations of liability you may have by your agency or by specific state statutes. Understanding those limitations of liability will help protect you in those instances. Also, it's very important that while you're performing your inspections that you make notations of things. Be very, very thorough with your report. If you did not notice the inspection deficiency at the time, it may have been because it didn't exist. For example, doors that were locked after you left the inspection would be a considerable concern. If you noted in your inspection that you had checked those doors and they were functional at the time you did the inspection, then that takes the liability off your back. So again, understanding the importance of the liabilities that you may face as an inspector for post-inspection, things that you may not have noticed or picked up, and the things that you've documented in your inspection and how those can protect you. So again, just like everything else we do in the fire service, documentation is extremely important. Going back to the question of right of entry, it's also important to understand that the Supreme Court has made several decisions regarding an inspector's right to enter a premise. You have to understand that any area that is publicly occupied, you can walk in as a public citizen. You're free to walk in at any time and visualize anything that may be of a concern. However, private areas within that same occupancy, areas that the general public cannot transverse into, the owner has a right to refuse. So you have to understand your abilities to be able to get access to those areas if it's something that you need to inspect. You walk into a storefront, for example, and you're conducting an inspection, and as you're walking through, you notice that there are a number of violations. Well, this is in the area that's plain and visible. You're concerned with the areas that might not be so plain and visible and whether those same violations might exist there. Might be open containers of flammable liquids or improper storage or bad housekeeping. All of those things might be of concern. So you want to make sure that you're able to go in and inspect those areas. So this is where tact and your approach has to come in as well. Most owners will comply simply by being properly asked. However, there may be conditions where the owner feels that they have an adversarial relationship with government entities and they don't want you coming on their premise. You have to understand your limitations and the ability for you to gain access, and also the tools that you may have at your hand if you need to gain access. Again, obtaining administrative warrants to be able to complete your inspection, or utilizing state ordinances or local ordinances to be able to complete your inspection. There may be constraints based on their licensure. For example, if they have a licensed operation, they may not be able to function on that license unless they comply to an inspection. So you may be able to enforce your rules in certain ways. They may refuse you to enter a certain area of their business, but you may be able to cease their operation by discontinuing their license or permit to conduct that business. That would impact them in a different manner, and that may force them into compliance. So understanding those laws and those aspects of what an inspector can and cannot do is very important.